He was just sitting there, sketching superheroes in his wheelchair like he did every peaceful Saturday morning. The sun had just begun to filter through the sycamore trees lining the curb when a glossy black SUV rolled to a stop. It idled there for a second too long, engine humming low and smooth, before two men stepped out in matching black outfits and an air of authority they hadn't earned. One of them, a thick-set man with a twisted sneer, walked right up and kicked the wheelchair. The boy froze, but someone else saw it happen. Someone they never should have messed with. It all started in Hawthorne Ridge, the kind of suburban neighborhood people spent their lives working to get into. The kind with spotless driveways, American flags on porches, and an unspoken competition over whose lawn stayed greener through summer. On weekends, dads grilled burgers in aprons, kids zipped through sprinklers, and retirees watered rose bushes in their wide-brimmed hats. Inside a red brick house on Sycamore Trail, Monica Anders stood in the kitchen, pouring a second cup of cinnamon roast coffee. She winced slightly as her shoulder twinged from the week's chores. Still, the scent of coffee and freshly made waffles made it all feel worth it. She glanced out the window and smiled. Out on the driveway, her 10-year-old son, Caleb, sat in his wheelchair, leaning over a thick sketch pad. His brows were furrowed in concentration, his tongue poking out slightly as he shaded in what looked like a massive, glowing war hammer. The superhero on the page wore sleek armor with circuits running down the limbs, and a radiant shield that seemed to shimmer even in crayon. Caleb was born with spastic diplegia, and his legs didn't work like other kids. But his mind? It soared. His world was one of dragons, sentient machines, and heroes with glowing eyes. This morning's character had taken shape over 3 days of planning. A guardian named Ion Vex with rocket boosters on his heels and a hammer that controlled lightning. Monica stepped outside briefly to leave a cold juice box next to him. "Still working on Ion Vex?" she asked, ruffling his hair. Caleb nodded, not taking his eyes off the paper. "Yeah, but I think he needs a laser core, too." She chuckled. "All right, you've got 10 minutes till waffles." Back inside the house, a man stood by the counter, sipping his coffee black. That was Damian Rourke, former pro fighter, part-time trainer, full-time mystery to most of the neighborhood. He and Monica had been friends since their high school days, back when he was teaching kids how to box, and she was already learning how to outwork anyone. After her husband passed the year before, Damian made it a point to drop by. Not for pity, for presence, for support, for strength she didn't have to ask for. He had shoulders like iron beams, a jawline that looked sandblasted, and hands that told stories of 100 bouts. Damian had retired from the ring after a torn rotator cuff, but you could still see it in his stance, the balance, the discipline, the quiet coil of someone who never forgot how to fight. It was as they talked about the past, about tournaments and scars, and the way life had changed them both, that the SUV came creeping into view. It didn't belong. Not just because Monica knew every car on a cul-de-sac, but because the thing had no plates. It rolled to a stop at the end of her driveway, with a quiet finality. The engine cut off. Two men stepped out, dressed in black tactical pants and polo shirts with a blocky HOA enforcement patch sewn on the chest. No names. No credencials. No reason to be there. One was lean, bald, and sharp-eyed behind mirrored shades, holding a clipboard like a weapon. The other, bulkier and glistening with sweat, had a radio clipped to his belt that wasn't even on. They walked like they owned the place, like they expected no one to question them. "Damian," Monica said, her voice tightening as she stared through the window. "Do you know those guys?" He stepped closer. "Never seen him." She was already heading to the door. Outside, the bald one stood in front of Caleb. His gaze dropped to the wheelchair with disdain. "Excuse me," Monica called out, stepping onto the porch. "Can I help you?" The bald man didn't look at her. "This child is obstructing the community access zone," he said coldly. Monica frowned. "He's sitting in our own driveway." "We've had complaints," he said. "This is a repeated violation." "That's nonsense," she shot back. No one said anything. "We are the HOA," the bulky one added, stepping closer to Caleb. "This layout isn't ADA compliant. If it happens again, we'll be issuing a fine." Then he did the unthinkable. Without warning, the bald man leaned in and kicked Caleb's wheelchair. Not enough to knock it over, but enough. Enough to rattle the boy. Enough to send his sketchbook tumbling to the ground, pages fluttering across the concrete like frightened birds. Time stopped. Monica ran to her son, kneeling beside him. "Are you hurt, Caleb? Baby, talk to me." Caleb blinked, lips trembling. "Why'd he do that? I wasn't even doing anything." But the men weren't paying attention to her anymore. They were looking at the man, now standing quietly at the top of the stairs. Damien Rourke. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even tense, but his eyes had gone flat, focused, like a hunter before the pounce. "You just kicked a disabled kid," he said quietly. "And now we've got a problem." The heavier man smirked. "Mind your business, Grandpa." Damien stepped down a stair. "I am the business." Then everything shifted. The bald man tried to shove him. That was his first and final mistake. Damien moved with the speed of instinct. His right fist shot out with devastating precision, landing square on the man's jaw. The crack echoed across the street. The man dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. Sunglasses sailed into the grass. Before the second man could react, Damien spun and grabbed his arm mid-swing, twisted it backward, and swept his legs in one fluid motion. The man hit the pavement hard, shoulder popping audibly. He screamed. Neighbors emerged, phones raised, mouths open. Caleb stared at Damien like he was Ion Vex come to life. Monica, still shielding her son, was frozen in awe. "You kicked a kid," Damien said, looming over the groaning man. "You're lucky I'm retired." "I'm calling the cops," Monica snapped. "No need," the man grunted. "We are enforcement." "No," Damien cut him off. "You're impersonators. And now you're done." Within minutes, sirens approached. Real police arrived. And when they saw the SUV with no plates, the false badges, the injured suspects, and a line of neighbors with phones full of footage, it was clear something major had gone down. Monica gave a statement. So did half the street. The officers recognized Damien's name. They had to. His face was on half the posters at local gyms. And they listened carefully as neighbors shared videos, one of them capturing the exact moment Caleb's chair was kicked. Another filmed the punch that flattened the bald man. The next morning, Monica's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. They were viral. The clip of the fake HOA enforcers getting served by ex-fighter after kicking disabled kid had 4.2 million views before lunch. The headlines came fast. So did the interviews. People reached out, some offering support, others sharing their own run-ins with fake officials. The two men were identified as Derek Marsh and Alvin Kerr. They had a trail of similar incidents across multiple counties. Now, thanks to the video and witness testimony, they were in jail without bail. Caleb's drawing of Ion Vex, slightly smudged but intact, appeared next to Damien's photo on a major news outlet. The caption read, "Real hero, real punch." A week later, Caleb received a medal from the mayor's office for courage in the face of intimidation. Damien refused to take credit, stepping back as a cape was placed around Caleb's shoulders. "You're the real hero," he said to the boy quietly. But Caleb shook his head. "No, I just imagine him. You showed me he's real." That mural went up 2 weeks later. On the community center's wall, a boy in a wheelchair drawing lightning, and behind him, a man mid-punch, frozen in righteous motion. The words underneath read, "Real power protects."